when a man has sex, he feels connection.
Yeah.
And a woman needs connection to have sex or to want to, generally speaking.
Generally. Yeah.
It's a bell-shaped curve type deal.
Yeah. And it was just also understanding that, because as women, like a lot of cultural whatever stories that were told, they're like, oh, they're such pigs, they're so disgusting. I mean, there's been so many things negative said about you guys and your need for sex, right? I'm sure you've heard it all or had to work through all the things. And that really sucks.
Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the TPM Show. And we are once again graced by having my wife, Erin Holt, here today to provide us with a woman's perspective. Now, if you haven't been to the show before, you may not know this, but my wife is a coach. She coaches women, and mostly married women, although she does coach kids as well as women who are single, but married women is her focus. And so she's got a unique perspective that us as men want to have, especially as guys that are in relationships with women, because she talks to so many of them. And she's going to do that today for us. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, glad to be here.
It's awesome to have you here as always and get a chance to have these dialogues. So you put something on the table because you were talking to a client of yours. And essentially what we're going to talk about today is what happens with emotional needs and when a man can meet a woman's emotional needs, and that could lead to more intimacy in the bedroom.
Definitely. So I'm sure you hear it all the time. Actually, I know you do. Like the topic of sex and intimacy and relationships.
Yep.
Super, super important. I have yet to know in a long-term relationship that hasn't gone through evolutions of how that shows up in the relationship and, challenges, and also learning how to create it where it's an amazing thing for both people involved. So specifically today, we're just talking about and honoring the differences between men and women. Like sometimes I think we all kind of mesh everybody together, like we're all the same. And in fact, we're more different than the same. And the more and more and more I learn about the differences between men and women, like the more I'm able to have more love and respect for myself and women, and more love and respect for men. And it's just like, gosh, if we just learn to honor our differences, we could really start to see each other from perspectives that are beneficial to our relationship instead of detrimental. And that includes our sex life.
No, it's so true. And we say it a lot on this show, but there's no other species out there, as you know, where we lump the male and the female of that species together. Science separates them. Right. And because they're so different biologically,
hormonally.
Well, hormonally, but even part biology. Yeah. Hormonally. But there's so many differences between the sexes in the species, and humans are the same, right? Your hormones are different than mine. The way you use your brain is different than mine. Your physical attributes are different than mine, right? You can birth a child. I can't. Like all kinds of things that come through there. And then also you put on top of that societal norms and societal pressures, and the fact that we expect the man and the woman to be the same and our expectations are the same is completely ass backwards.
And I think it leads to a lot of confused men and women in relationships, and frustration and resentments and just like fed up. And then the whole story of you always, you never type situation. And so specifically I was talking about today where it's like honoring the difference, and like we can go into this further maybe in another podcast, but like the difference for men and women, like women want and need sex. Absolutely.
Yep.
And I mean, you're a man, but I've learned and know this, but like sex is like a need for you guys, just like water and food.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
And with that need getting met, it's a way you feel loved and connected. Obviously, it feels good physically. We all know this. It's fun. It's intimate. Correct?
Yeah. I always say that, when a man has sex, he feels connection.
Yeah.
And a woman needs connection to have sex or to want to, generally speaking.
Generally. Yeah.
It's a bell-shaped curve type deal.
Yeah. And it was just also understanding that, because as women, like a lot of cultural whatever stories that were told, they're like, oh, they're such pigs, they're so disgusting. I mean, there's been so many things negative said about you guys and your need for sex, right? I'm sure you've heard it all or had to work through all the things. And that really sucks, right? Because if it's a need, it's a legitimate need. And if you can, I learned to like undo that conditioning because I was taught that, right? that's all men want, blah, 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 right? And then on the opposite side is like a woman, like learning to honor and respect like our need for emotional connection and intimacy with our man is just as high as your need for sex. There's no hierarchy. There's not one that's better than the other. Completely different. But when men can understand it from that perspective, it's not frivolous. It's not needy. It's not all the labels that we get too emotional, right? We get all these negative things. When that need is met within a relationship from our man, yes, we get it from our girlfriends and it's totally different, but we want to have sex. Like, pay attention to us. Give us your undivided attention and energy. Get into our world. Like, listen to our feelings. Like, let us have a space to go to where we know we can trust you. You're safe. You're going to have our back. You know how to love us well. Like, we want your attention way more than anybody else's. And when we get that, like, we want to jump your bones. Like, it's a really positive feedback loop.
Colton's here, so no. Of course, I know this from our conversations and the studies that I've done, and I think what happens with a lot of people. Well, I'll talk about what I see with a lot of guys that I work with. Is it's more of a, well, I'll fulfill her needs once mine are met, right? And so this is horse trading, right? But it's basically, I'll do this when they do that. Rather than looking at it from a perspective that we approach our marriage with is, I love you and I want the best for you, and from you, but I want the best for you. So I just do things that I feel are the best for you, right? I mean, I just do them because I love you and not because I'm going to get something in return, or I'm not going to do the dishes until Erin vacuums the rug or some BS like that. And it's easy to get caught in that game. It's just kind of human nature. It's the teenager inside of us that kicks in and kind of stomps their feet. Our kids do that, right? And I see it in our children who are amazing, and they're 4 and 7 years old. And I see this happen with adults, and I look back early on in our marriage and how often both of us did that, and kind of holding a grudge. Well, she's not doing this, so therefore I'm not doing that, or vice versa.
Yeah. And then I think also through that, what can creep in is like the story you're telling yourself about your partner. Like, if I was telling the story, like, oh, Doug's such a slob. Like, he thinks he can just leave his stuff everywhere and it'll get taken care of. And then, like, if that's my story of Doug, then every time you're in a rush between meetings and you just leave your bowl out, I'm like, oh my God, he's such a jerk. He's such a slob and doesn't respect me. And, right? Versus like, it's also like clearing up, what's your story you're telling yourself about your partner? And then like the other thing is too, like, I think sometimes I've talked to a lot of men through the Powerful Men and stuff like that, just being like trying to understand emotional intelligence, like really want to know what that is. And like I said, some of the main words like trust and safe. You're a safe place for her to land, but also just like, it's easy. I think it's just like in a business, like you're going to have constant meetings and touch points, and there's going to be miscommunications, and you go back and clean up. Like, no, this project needs this person on here. Like, you would never just have one conversation and then expect your business to run perfectly for the next 40 years. Like, your business would die. Same thing for a long-term partnership or marriage. Like, you need to put energy into it. And like, whatever you put your like attention on and intention, that's like a power point right there. Like, give your positive attention to your person with the intention of connection and intimacy. And like this is the one person, if you're in a monogamous relationship, you're sharing that with. Like, bring some good juju and energy to it.
Yeah, you've said so many things that are great, and I want to first apologize about the bowl that I did leave in the sink. I'm trying to run here to do this podcast with you. I think it all starts with, I know we're going a little off topic, but it's so important, with having the idea that the person that you're with is doing good, right? Thinking the good things rather than looking at the negative. So a lot of our guys are businessmen that listen to this show. As a businessman, the easiest thing to do is find problems in your business. It's the easiest thing. The hard thing is enjoying the journey and all the positive successes you've had. Because once you achieve a goal or success, you create another gap because there's something else you want to achieve. And then you look at all the negatives that are going through there. The same could be said in a relationship. So often, I could look at you of saying, Erin left the bathroom counter a complete mess. rather than thinking, how awesome was it that she was taking care of the kids, carving pumpkins this morning, getting the trays out, getting breakfast ready, getting the kids off to school, all the other things I'm seeing, instead of just focusing. And she left her stuff out in the sink, probably because she's trying to get kids' shoes on, get them out the door. She didn't have time to clean up. Right? There's the two different paradigms. And it's how we look at the lens at which we look at other people, especially the person we're the closest to, which is our partner, the person we said, hey, I want to do life with you. I want to do the rest of my life with you. Not I want you to be my servant. Not I want you to just provide money or whatever else it is. I want to do life with you. And another thing I want to add on to that is so often when I talk to guys and when I'm talking to them about their marriages, when they've been married for a long time, they forget that their wife has changed from being the woman that they married to the woman she is today. Like, I'd be ridiculous to think that when I met you in our 30s, that you're the same woman today.
I was in my 20s.
You're 20s. Yeah. You're 18. You're only 25 now, right? You get the idea. And a question I'll ask guys sometimes is like, who's your wife's best friend, right? Who does she talk to the most? What books is she reading? Things of that nature. Very rarely can a guy answer any of those questions. I'm fortunate that I do take interest in the books you're reading, the things that you're into. And you and I have a great dialogue about it. And I find it interesting. I find it fascinating. I think a lot of people get stuck in this rut of just assuming that the person they're with is the same person they were 10 years ago, a year ago, 6 months ago. So much can happen and so much change.
Another conversation tied in and similar is the very feminine side of the emotional world within a relationship and in a home. So it's like not tangible. It's not like, oh, wow, like I just closed 7 clients or I just, painted the house, whatever. It's the untangible, unseen, but very felt. Like, you think about, like, if you ever walk into a home, it doesn't matter, like, if it's a mansion or a 2-story, like, it just feels good. Like, that is a very feminine thing. And I will say, like, maybe some men are aware of this or some are not, but, like, that unseen world and, like, managing that and, like, keeping harmony and connection and that energy in a home takes a ton of energy from women, as well as it being a super high priority.
Hey guys, I wanted to interrupt this episode because it's dawned on me that many of you guys aren't aware that we actually have a book on how to save your marriage without talking about it. Now, thousands of men have read it, they've reviewed it, and I want to give you the opportunity to do the same. If you're interested in grabbing it, it's a short read, but it's helped a lot of men just like you. And maybe you're not interested in the activation method yet, but this is a small entry point that can really turn things around for you. Go over on Amazon. We have it priced as cheap as Amazon will let us. And that way you have a resource that you can use right now to start getting some results in your marriage. Now let's get back to the episode.
Like, I don't know a woman, myself included, that doesn't want their home to feel good for their family and for people that when they walk in it. Yes, the beauty and look good, that's a whole other thing. I'm talking about the completely untangible people, men, I don't know, they might not think about that, but you sure as heck know it's not there when it's off.
So I think all guys want their home to feel good. I think whenever I talk to a man like about our vision of wanting all kids to feel safe that they can come and go, I know I joke about it sometimes with certain kids, but I want everybody that comes into our home to feel good. Like, hey, your
Love.
Open door policy type thing.
Yep.
Yeah, rules and everything else, but the boundaries, but love, and it just feels like a sanctuary. But to your point, what I think you're saying is that's on the forefront of most women's minds, where I would say it's not probably on the most men. Men would think, I want to make sure there's snacks provided, like in the pantry. Like they're thinking about providing safety, providing, make sure that they're making enough money so there's food in the cupboards. Those are the things that be in the foremost front of the man's mind. And then also boundaries. Like make sure those little rugrats aren't running around causing trouble. That kind of stuff.
Right. Super tangible.
Yep.
Right. So the thing is, like,
except for the rugrats part. Like,
like just like the women, we have a constant GPS on our people of like, are they healthy? Are they happy? Are they okay? Like, we can't turn it off. We don't, it's just there. It's not like we even turn it on. It's constant. And so it's just like knowing that takes a lot of our brain power, a lot of our energy. It's just like always running in the background. I'm sure I'll have some computer analogy that I don't know about, but like it's constantly on. It's never, ever, ever off. So it's just like the level of importance of like having a space where we can go and be held emotionally. And also you said a good word. Like, I know you, like physically, you're very strong. Yes, you're going to keep me safe if somebody like Colton tries to attack me, which he never would. But I know you're going to like destroy whoever tries to attack me. You're also going to hold an emotional boundary. Like to say we're out and somebody's rude to me. You're going to be like, no, right? Like you're my protector emotionally too. That is vital as well.
Yeah. And something I've learned over the years, of course. And so I have some questions I want to ask you, but let's dive into that just a little bit, because that took me a little bit of time to understand. And I don't want to skim over an important process just because you and I understand it. So I want to make sure the guys listening to this kind of get what you're saying. So I remember one time you telling me you're crying and I was going to walk out the door and you're crying, trying to stop me from walking out the door. And you said, something about you didn't feel safe. You're like, I'd rather you hit me than close off to me. And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? If I hit you, I'd knock you out. Like that's going to hurt. And that was back in the days when I was really, really fit. And I was just like, I was doing jujitsu, I think at the time. So it's like, this doesn't make any sense. Like I would never hit you, would never hurt you. And what I got from that conversation, because it stuck with me because you were crying, it was a very emotional experience. And we had a fight. It's the emotional safety that's required that for men to provide their wives. Their wives want to be physically safe, but that should be a kind of an undercurrent that's just guaranteed, right? I know it's not in a lot of relationships, but our philosophy and the powerful man is it should be, right? We don't support any abuse or emotional abuse, but that just doesn't get it talked about as much. And so for a woman needs to feel emotionally safe. So when I explain this to guys, a lot of guys are like, oh shit, that's what she was saying. So that's why I want to go into it a little bit, is the woman needs emotional safety first and foremost. And if she can't have emotional safety, she can't be seen, heard, or desired, right? Which are the next steps that we teach the guys. So she needs to be provided that emotional safety. And that emotional safety means not going into what we call deer mode, defending, excusing, explaining, and reacting, right? So I'm going to tell you my version, and you tell me if I get it somewhat close. A woman needs to feel energetically or in her space that she's safe to be herself and that her man's not going to be erratic and he's going to be consistent and grounded. So therefore she can be free. And that's a safety mechanism for women.
Pretty well said.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Let's just leave it there and just move on. No, yeah, of course, add anything on.
Yeah. So definitely where she can, all of that will provide for where she can relax more into her feminine.
Yep.
Which we're craving and men are craving as well, right?
Yeah.
And also tied in with that is trust. And it's trust from the angle is like she can tell you her deepest, darkest, whatever secrets, and you're going to hold that with her. And she can also trust that you're going to be your word and integrity. And if you say your simple things like, hey, don't worry, I'm going to take over the trash on Tuesdays and do the trash. Like things like that. Obviously life comes up, communicate it, but it's just like, there's a safety in knowing that we can count on you and safety in knowing that you're going to have our back. And that, we can fall apart in front of you, but then that is how women move the emotions through us. That's how we move our feelings through us. That's very feminine. To have when we cry, it's very healing. So if you guys like try and joke it away or shut it down, or you're just sitting there like, oh my God, I'm so uncomfortable. And I get it's different for you guys. You aren't trained that way, but it's like if we have a space where we can cry and melt and move the emotions through us, like, oh man, that's healing. It releases so much cortisol. It just is like, I just took a deep breath because it feels like taking a deep breath to know that we can do that.
Something that I would tell the guys listening to this right now, because I love what you said, is, I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and he was telling me that he and his partner, his wife, used to have crazy sex. You know, like great, amazing sex, but wild sex. Like anything, not anything goes, but pretty darn close from what he was telling me about it. And it's completely dried up in the bedroom, right? Going through there. And what I was trying to explain to him is if your wife doesn't feel safe outside the bedroom, how the heck could you expect her to feel safe inside the bedroom doing all the things that you're describing you'd like to do with her, right? The first step is providing safety outside the bedroom. So if you want to have that wild, hot, kinky sex or just even wild sex, then you need to provide safety outside the bedroom so she can feel safe to do that with you inside the bedroom. True?
100%.
100%, she says. So that's exactly where it starts. Most guys miss that, right? So they just don't get that element that safety's it's got to be there. If you're judging your wife outside the bedroom, the way she looks, you're making jokes about it, why is she going to want to get naked with you? You know, when she got those judgments. So people miss that element. And to your point earlier on when we first started this conversation, for a man, we need sex to feel connected. And then you said women, hey, we have a need of feeling connected. We need to feel that sense of safety, but that sense of connection. That's like your lifeblood.
It's yes.
Perfect. Just making sure the things I'm teaching the guys are right.
Yes.
But good to hear that they are. Yeah, it's just very common. And for us guys, we've never heard this before, right? So this is all new. It was all new to me. I remember when you and I were going through our problems, I couldn't find the answers. They didn't exist. There wasn't the powerful man. The relationship program wasn't out there. And a lot of women think that the men that join our program just do it to get more sex. And do they want more? Probably. But is that the reason they join? No. They don't at all. And they join because they want more connected sex, right? So men want connection with that too. Otherwise, we just go masturbate, right? I mean, it's faster, it's easier in a lot of ways. So women get to know that. The men want that connection. They want that passion. They want their wife to look at them with love and respect in their eyes. And the way that you get there, gentlemen, is by providing love and respect back, right? If you have to initiate it. And getting there so that then you can have the connection. And the way that women receive love and respect might be slightly different, every woman, right? You just get to figure out your partners.
And yeah, I'm just thinking about also like once sex starts before the bedroom.
Yep.
Big time. Flirt with her, kiss her, touch her, grab her, touch her in a way only you can. Like keep the energy alive.
Yeah, you have to mix things up.
Yep. And then lead.
Yeah.
Women love to be led in the bedroom.
Yep. Outside the bedroom too.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. And if she's not liking you lead her, odds are she doesn't trust you. She doesn't trust your leadership.
Right.
Right. And that's the common thing, which is so weird because as men, we find ourselves as modern men in this weird space. It's changing and evolving, but it's like, you know, guys will talk about it all the time. If I open the car door for a woman, one woman will love it. The other one will yell at me for being showing
like I'm capable.
I'm capable of doing it. It's the energetic appeal behind it. So what I always counter them with is that same exact woman that yelled at you is loving another man opening that door, right? In a different way, and it could be the time, right? Women are human. Just like us guys, we can have bad days or good days. You don't know what somebody else is going through internally. You know, we all have bad days. What I was going to ask you, and this is going to be off topic a little bit, but you were talking about how women are keeping track of all their people and everything. And since I know you never have to deal with stressed out business people at all in your world,
Ever.
or businessmen that are taking on too much or trying to do too much with their lives. So we'll talk about the kids then. When kids are having problems, like your clients, because we don't have teenagers, but we have a 4-year-old that's like a teenager sometimes. But when teenagers are being erratic or they're having their problems in their personal life or just being kind of just jerks, the way teenagers can be, for most women, does that completely disrupt the household energy for them?
I haven't raised a teenager yet, but I've been around a lot of teenagers.
But what about for the women that you've worked with? Does that ever come up? Because you mentioned a woman always knows where people are, but wants to keep.
Well, she has a pulse on her
harmonious.
people.
Yeah.
Like if somebody walks in the room, she knows if they're okay or not, or if they're carrying, if they do the whole, like, yeah, I'm fine. She's like, I know you're not, right? Like, it's just like this unspoken language. Like, we just know. What?
I was thinking about we were driving off the ranch, the TPM ranch. So for those that don't know, TPM, we have a 106-acre ranch. We're at that right now where we hold events. So it's a physical location we run a lot of our events out of. Ran into Chris, who's an amazing guy who works with us. And he was at the ranch and he asked me a question and I made a one-word comment and he said like, okay. And you were like, wow, men and women are so different. You know, and that's what I was laughing at.
Okay.
Because you're like, he knew what you were implying and not to go to ask follow-up questions, whereas women would ask more clarifying questions.
Yes. So can it disrupt? Yes. But it's like also when you're dealing with a teenager, like, you know, you're dealing with somebody that's in a phase of life that is, gosh, rocky, so much changing, hormones, crazy. It's it's nuts. We've all been through it. It's wonderful at the same time. So it's just like, you know, you're dealing with somebody whose brain is not fully developed and they're just coming on board at a different season of their life. Can it be disruptive? Yeah. Is it something that, like, if our partners acted like a teenager, that would be much more like disruptive. When a teenager's acting like a teenager, it's like, yeah, it's disruptive, but it's kind of expected.
Yeah. It's a good thing I never do that.
Yeah, never. Me either. But yeah, family dynamics, that's a whole other conversation. But,
yeah, it'd be a great episode to do in a little bit. I got a couple other ones I was thinking about after this conversation. I was thinking about what would really move the needle for the men, especially the guys we want to teach. Guys that go through our flagship program, the activation method, they've heard a lot of this stuff and they're learning how to change their communication style, right? We talk about how to save a marriage without talking about it. A lot of these are energetic leadership things that we teach the men. And the funniest thing about it, babe, and I know you know this, is all the guys say, this is who I naturally am. And they've just suppressed it through society, stress with work, stories they've told themselves. And then they become naturally who they are, their marriage comes together. And I remind them, I'm like, your woman knew who she was marrying. She's just not getting that version of you right now. And that's one of the reasons you're having problems.
Yep.
I love having you here. It's great topics. I think the guys are going to get a ton of value. So I really appreciate all you're doing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Gentlemen, as I always say, in the moment of insight, take massive action. Erin just gave you a bunch of ideas. Remember, women need to have that emotional safety first. But then after that, right, that should be a given. But if you haven't gotten there, you know, that's where you start. But they need the connection, right? They need to feel seen, heard, and desired. And they need the emotional connection, just like you need sex. They need that emotional connection. And women do want sex probably even more than most guys, but they need that connection first so you can unlock that level, so to speak, to the game. So as I said in the moment of insight, take massive action, and we'll see you next time on the TPM Show.